Welcome to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong, a podcast presented by two exes who are now good friends. In last week's episode, we talked about things that make us laugh, so this week we start off by talking about things that make us cry. Films, TV shows, even Instagram videos about stray dogs being rescued. From around the 50-minute mark, we talk about physical and sexual assault, so please stop listening there if you find this distressing. Enjoy the ride.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. In this podcast, Josh and I talk about so many different topics: love, health, politics, music, pop culture, all from the very special perspective of us being exes who are still really good friends. So welcome Josh. How you doing?
Hi Sean, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm having a bit of a... there's always something technical with our podcast, isn't there? We've never really got our stuff together.
Never got our shit together.
Like this light, I can't find an extension cord. So the ring light is propped up against my laptop, just sideways, just there, half pointing at me, half not. And it's all dark over here, but it's really light over here.
Well, I think all regular viewers and listeners will already know this is not a professional operation that we're running here. It's a very DIY amateur podcast. There's no script. The equipment we're using is not, it's far from perfect, let's put it that way. And the content is not well researched or factual in many cases. So it's that the lighting situation is like a manifestation of our approach to this podcast. But welcome back to our regular viewers, and please don't forget to subscribe and to comment and like and share everywhere. Why haven't you got an extension cord, Sean? It's like a real basic household item, isn't it?
I don't know. I also left it to the last minute because I've had such a busy day, and I had to just go to the gym, and then I'm trying to cook food to eat because I can't eat very late. I have to eat early. And then, so my dinner is cooked, ready, so I just need to warm it up after this. I didn't have time. There was meant to be a stand for the ring light as well. I can't find it. I have an extension cord, but it's plugged into the TV and the wireless router, like the Wi-Fi. Okay. So if I unplug it or even switch it off, that would have set us back. We would have to wait 10 minutes for my Wi-Fi to reset. And it's just one drama after another.
As Desiree said, life, oh life.
What are some of the lyrics from
that? Was that Desiree? That was Desiree, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm afraid to see a ghost. It's the thing that I fear most.
I'd rather have a piece of toast and drink.
Watch the evening news. No, have a piece of toast and watch the evening news. I think life ain't easy as it seems. No, again, a lack of research. It's very evident.
Well, we didn't know we were going to be conjuring the spirit of Desiree.
That's it. We never know. I think Desiree is still with us. I don't think there's the. I don't think she's passed over. That's true. But yeah, just to prove that we really don't prepare or have a script or any kind of idea about what we're going to talk about. But I won't recite the entire misremembered lyrics of that song. But
do you even know what the song is called?
Isn't it just called Life?
No idea.
Oh, Life?
Piece of toast?
Life,
Piece of toast?
Rabbits. The thing that used to really annoy me about that song, though, and I don't know, maybe it's just a cultural thing, because in England, we always say, well, traditionally it's been like, I mean, it's horrible because it's a piece of a dead animal, but like a rabbit's foot would be the thing that gives you luck, right? I don't know if that was a thing in Australia when you were younger, a rabbit's foot would bring you luck. But in the song, she says a rabbit's tail, and I think she just does it to rhyme, but it actually isn't. But then maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just my grandma and her funny...
No, I think it is a rabbit's foot that is meant to be lucky. But where does that come from? Is it like I don't know, like what?
I don't know.
What culture or what background does that come from?
No idea. Probably something to do with hunting or something awful. But yeah, I think Desiree says I'm a superstitious girl. I'm the worst in the world. Never walk under ladders. I keep a rabbit's tail. And I was like, wait a minute, it's a rabbit's foot. But anyway,
But what does that rhyme with? Tail.
well, girl, world, loosely.
Tail? It
Yeah.
doesn't even. It
I'm
doesn't
a
even rhyme.
superstitious girl. I'm the worst in the world. Never walk under ladders. I keep a rabbit's tail. You
And
know, it's a
maybe
slight.
tail rhymes with something in another verse because that doesn't rhyme with anything
No,
there.
it
It's not
does.
even like a soft.
It's a
It's not even a
loose
soft rhyme.
it's a loose rhyme with world and girl.
No
Tail,
way.
tail.
Sure, she
Anyway,
knows what she's talking about. What else did Desiree sing?
you gotta be something. I can't remember the lyrics really. You gotta
You
be
got to be
stronger.
bold. You got to be brighter. You got to
That's
be.
it.
Yeah.
That's right. And
Is
wait a
that
minute,
it?
there
Is that
was
the only
something. No, no,
song?
no. What was that song? She was on the Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet soundtrack as well, wasn't she? What was that? Miss Kissing You Forever, or something like that. I love that soundtrack. That was a really, really good soundtrack.
Okay.
And I just was listening to Miriam Margolyes's audio book. Well, I've been listening to it over the last few weeks, but I just finished
Yeah.
it. And she was talking about her experience, and I completely forgot she was in that as the nurse. And she was talking about Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio on set and what they were like. And Leonardo apparently would fly loads of his sort of Hollywood friends down to, because it was filmed in Mexico City, and he would
Yeah.
fly a lot of his Hollywood friends because he would have been about 18, I think, 19.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
He would have been quite young.
she was talking about Sarah Gilbert coming down and staying, and she said that everyone was quite mean to Claire Danes. Like Claire Danes was very young; it was one of her first big jobs, and her parents were on set the entire time because she was young and hadn't had a lot of experience, and so they wanted to be there. And she said that people were quite sort of mean. They left Claire Danes out of the sort of the parties, and they just didn't sort of socialize with her. And she said she was a very, very lovely, very unassuming person. And anyway, listen to the read the book or listen to the audiobook.
I know you're giving all the spoilers away. You're
I know.
doing. What's her name?
Miriam Margolyes.
Miriam.
Yeah,
Doing Miriam out of like her royalties.
true.
But what's Claire Danes ever been in
She's
else?
she's been in something recently. I wish I could remember. Like she's I mean, she's known as an American actress, but I think she was born in Australia, wasn't she?
No.
I'm sure
I'm,
she
a
was.
I'm pretty sure she's not. But
Why
wasn't
do you
she
want to do
in
some
one of
live
those?
research?
I am. But wasn't
Okay,
she in one of those movies, like teen things, like with Heath Ledger? Was she in like 10 Things I Hate About You or something like that?
maybe. I don't actually know if I've ever seen anything else with her in apart from Romeo and Juliet. Um,
Yeah. I don't know. I
but it
mean, I'm
was
just having a look. The first returns uh, on Google. I mean, just there was a TV show she was in called My So-Called Life.
oh yeah, I've not seen
It
it,
was
but I
like
know the
only
name.
two seasons or something. I think she was the lead in that, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
quite a cult show now. I don't think it was super popular,
At the
or it
time,
didn't at the time, but it became like a bit of a cult favorite. She was in a TV show called Homeland. I've never watched that.
no.
It says that she was in Little Women with Winona, the movie remake.
Okay.
I mean, there's tons of other movies as well,
Does it
but
say where she was
uh,
born?
I will look at that in a minute. She was in The Hours, the movie
With Nick
version
with Nicole Kidman? Is that what I'm
in
thinking
Nicole
of?
Kidman, yeah,
Okay.
and
Another
uh,
Australian actor? Heath Ledger?
uh,
Didn't you say she was in something with Heath
I'm
Ledger?
trying to find this thing that she was in with Heath Ledger, but I don't know. Oh, Me and Orson Welles. I like that movie with Zac Efron was in it.
I don't think I've seen that.
I enjoyed that. Another Winona movie, How to Make an American Quilt.
Okay. Maybe
I
I
mean,
need
I'm
to
not going
go
to just.
down a maybe I need to
I'm not,
hyperfixate on Claire Danes and do a deep dive into her oeuvre.
it says she was in the music video or something to do with Ben Lee, Catch My Disease. Remember that
Oh,
song
I
by
know
Ben
that
Lee?
song, yeah.
who is another Australian.
Please, baby. Yeah, there you go. All the
Don't get
Australian
us struck off
connections.
for don't get us struck off for
Copyright
using
infringement.
someone's copyright song. Okay,
Yeah.
she is an American actress. She was born in New York City,
All right, I take it back.
but she's actually a lot younger than I thought she would be. Have a guess how old she is.
Well, when was that Baz Luhrmann film made? That would have been 95, 6, 96. And she would have been, I guess, 17, 18 then. Is that right? I don't know. What is
Um,
she? Is she 44?
she's 45. Yeah.
45, okay.
And she's just one of these people that I've always known about, but I just don't, I'm not familiar with her.
Hmm.
Like, like there's someone like Kirsten Dunst or Winona Ryder, and you might have seen them in lots of things, and you might have even seen things they've been in multiple times.
Hmm.
I don't even know if I've seen Romeo and Juliet in its entirety once.
Really? Oh God, it's such a
Yeah.
great film. And because you lived in Mexico City as well, it's amazing to see like Reformer Avenue and stuff in the
Yeah,
film
well,
and the Castle
I've watched,
Chapultepec.
I've watched YouTube videos of like people showing the locations and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but I don't think I've ever
And
watched the movie.
that huge church that was down near where Hill used to live in Del
Hmm.
Valle, that was like one of the main locations for the film.
Yeah. Well,
What
anyway, Claire Danes, I apologize for being not dismissive, but unaware of your
I'm
career.
I still maintain there was some kind of Australian connection in her background, so
Maybe you
we'll
just think that because that was really big when you were in Australia. Like it was still a really big deal, wasn't it? That movie.
Romeo and Juliet.
Like,
Yeah, but
yeah. And like, do you remember all the remixes of the songs were always played in the gay bars in
oh
Sydney?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
what were some
There's
of the songs like?
well, there was
I like
the
this
what was the Cardigans one? Yes, you
love, loveful,
Loveful. Yeah, that was huge, wasn't it? Like,
and they would just do these high energy dance remixes of anything back in the
mm,
mid '90s, late '90s,
mm,
and it was that what's that other song? Young Hearts Run Free, or
yeah, yeah, yeah. That
is
was
that what it was called?
yeah. Well, that's I don't know if that was the actual title, but yeah, Young Heart. Yeah, maybe it was just called Young Hearts, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was. Well, I mean, there was the Prince song, "When Doves Cry."
that wasn't
Um,
Prince singing it, was it?
no, it was more sort of a choral interpretation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
So
I might have to revisit the film actually.
yeah, Young Hearts Run Free, but it says the soundtrack there was parts one and part two
Oh, really?
of
Okay,
the soundtrack.
okay. It
I
was,
mean, I don't
yeah,
know.
it was a big. Loads of people had that CD. I remember it was like one of those albums that just took off.
Yeah, it says here that the cover of the Prince song was by somebody called Quindon Tarver,
Oh
and it
yeah,
became a hit in Australia in 1997. So
yeah.
yeah, I remember it being particularly big in Australia.
Well,
I
probably
don't,
because Baz Luhrmann's Australian, so it's.
yeah, and I don't understand why I never saw it, but it was something that I was really aware of.
Hmm,
So all the imagery, the music was played in all the gay bars.
hmm.
It was just everywhere. Even and the Leo being a teen heartthrob was in the media all the time and in the magazines that I read. So I was very aware of it, but I just never saw it. But I also never saw Titanic.
Right.
I
Okay.
I don't know
That
what
would have
now.
been 90. That was 98, I think, wasn't it? Titanic. Because I
Okay.
remember it was when I was living in Sydney, just after I'd met you, and I just quit smoking. And
Yeah, but no, that must be 97 then, not 98. Because I left in February 98 to move to the UK. So do you think it had come out
yeah, but I don't
after I
think I
left?
quit. I don't think I quit smoking. I think I quit smoking in maybe like March or April of 98, and I went to see
Yeah,
it in
so
the
mate. Oh,
cinema.
okay.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
remember it was like, that was because, when you smoke cigarettes, that's like coming out of the cinema is like such a trigger moment, it's like when you reach for your ciggies. And because Titanic was really long, wasn't it? It was like 2.5 hours, I think.
Mm.
And yeah, after coming out of that, and it was a bit weepy as well, of course, at the end. And I remember that the cravings for a cigarette were real.
What movies do you think you've cried the most in, or while watching? Uh,
I cry. I think I've said this on the podcast before. I cry very easily at TV and film. Like I cry in episodes of Neighbours and stuff like that. Um, I think you just get so emotionally invested in the characters, don't you? Um,
yeah,
what's the most?
I cried watching Pose the other day, the
Oh
final
yeah,
season of
me
Pose.
too. Because we were just talking about this earlier in the week about season 3 of Pose, and I was saying I know I've watched season 3, but you were telling me major plot lines in it, and I had no recollection. But again, anyone who listens to this podcast regularly will know my memory is actually a bit of a concern. Maybe I should go to the doctor about it. But I'd started watching season 3 again, and I knew I'd seen the first couple of episodes, and the end of episode 1, I was just sobbing. I was ugly crying. Um, it's
Hmm.
it's so sad. But yeah, what I mean, 6 Feet Under. The season finale of 6 Feet Under
Oh, that was devastating.
yeah, it is. Um,
I cried.
films,
Remember when we went to see LIE, Long Island Expressway?
yes, with
I think I cried in that, and then also Mysterious Skin. I think I cried in
oh
that.
yeah, that was
I mean,
devastating.
we were
Jeez.
both sobbing hysterically at the end of Mysterious Skin. I've cried when we went to see Moulin Rouge. I think I cried when Nicole Kidman's
We
character
went
died.
we went to see that with Patricia, didn't we, in LA?
Yeah,
And
somewhere
I
in
don't
Southern
I
California.
that was his first film after Romeo and Juliet, wasn't it? And I
I don't.
remember not liking it that much. I remember
And
being a
I
bit
remember not
underwhelmed.
liking it, but I remember crying. I mean, I cry sometimes at TikTok videos of like a puppy getting rehomed
Oh
or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God,
You
don't.
know
You'll
these
set me off. You'll set me off soon.
these videos where they find like a mongrel dog under a truck trying to
No,
bite
no,
people, and
don't.
then
It's
they take
so
it and they wash
don't.
it.
I can't cope. I can't cope.
But you
Um,
know, when I've cried watching the finale of MASH.
yeah,
I've cried.
yeah.
I've cried watching. Often I'll cry when I see other people cry in a show or like any sort of finale of a TV show. It's just the heightened emotion
It's
of
so
it.
interesting, isn't it? And I mean, art does give us a sort of a framework to process our emotions. But when I flew back from America a few weeks back, and I watched on the flight, I watched the musical version of The Color Purple, and I don't think it was that great a film, to be honest. The original is incredible, one of my favorite films of all time, and I don't know, like the musical, it just didn't do it for me. But what was interesting was I was crying on a crowded plane because even though the film didn't do it for me, the characters are exactly the same, and the storyline is more or less identical to
Mhm.
the book and the film. And I was crying more because it reminded me of the original film or the original book, the
Mhm.
characters in that. Um, so that that original film of The Color Purple with Whoopi and with Oprah, that really is a tearjerker. There are so many.
I think I used to cry a lot more when I used to drink because I think
Oh,
drinking
really?
alcohol maybe makes you emotional. But
But you
you
mean
know,
while you were drunk, or just in periods of your life when you were drinking? Like,
no, when I was drunk.
oh,
So
okay.
if I was watching one of my old favorite movies, and I would have a bottle of wine, and I would then become all teary at the end because I was more
Hmm.
emotional or more unhinged. I used to like watch I don't know, The Prince and the Showgirl with Marilyn Monroe. It's one of my favorite
I don't
movies,
think I've seen that. Okay.
and I always cry at the end. Like Sweet Charity, I always cry at the end. I anything where it's like, you know, a good time gal gets her heart broken and has to just soldier on through life and then realizes that she's trash at the end and no one's ever going to love her. You know, like Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, terrible movie, and I just cried for an hour afterwards. Or yeah, I'm very much that sort of crier.
Hmm.
for things. And I mean, what I liked about Pose, it was very sad, obviously. And spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't know, it's centered around the ballroom scene in New York City with a lot of trans and queer people and people of color who live through, or some of them don't live through, the HIV and AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s. And so there is a lot of traumatic storytelling. And but what I liked about Pose at the end, I was sad crying, but also happy crying because they did some really cheesy sort of Hollywood endings for some of the characters who like
Hmm.
finally got a break in life after
Right.
being so oppressed and targeted and having such horrible lives.
Hmm.
And so I was crying like sad tears. I was crying like there were scenes around recreating the ACT UP protests in New York to try and fight for the lives of people living with AIDS and HIV.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it was there were so many reasons to cry, and yeah, so I just spent the entire last few episodes just in some state of crying.
Right.
But
Right.
I was the same with It's a Sin, the UK
Oh yeah.
series, television series by Russell T Davies.
Hmm.
Davies or Davis?
Davies, I think. Yeah, Russell
Okay,
T Davies. Yeah.
yeah. I pretty much cried through that entire thing. Like,
Really? Okay.
yeah, I didn't
Oh,
really cry.
what was the Welsh guy who? Well, can I do spoilers? No.
I suppose, but
Yeah,
people
the
should go and watch it.
spoiler alert. But yeah, the Welsh guy who dies in hospital. That was so sad. Um.
Talking of hospitals, I was in a hospital today going for. I have to go to the sleep clinic to get tested for my sleep apnea,
Mhm.
which is, I suppose, sleep apnea is where you stop breathing when you're asleep. You don't get enough oxygen. It's not always related to weight, but it can be exacerbated or made worse by being overweight.
Mhm.
But it's also connected to snoring. And as you would know, I've always been a notorious snorer. Even when I've lost weight in the past, I think my snoring has improved a little bit, but I've
And
still,
when you stop drinking as well, like when you would drink, your snoring would be much worse.
yeah. So I had to go to this room today, and it was because they used to take you into a sleep clinic and give you a trial overnight. You'd sleep in hospital, but of
Mm.
course, with NHS cost cutting, they give you the equipment to take home, and you have to strap yourself up. And so I have to go into a room today and have it demonstrated to me. There was a group of three other middle-aged people with various reasons for why they've got sleep apnea, and we had to have it demonstrated to us. And they said, okay, you get this little box, you've got to strap it to your chest. These two sensors you've got to strap to your chest. You've got to plug this in, that you've got to put something in your nose, tape it to your face. So I've got all this equipment. I've got to go to bed tonight and strap all and tape all of this stuff to me.
Going to
It's going to
bed
be
with your
very,
and get your strap on. Um,
yeah,
but
strapped on.
what does the machine actually do? I'm not really clear what the machine does.
Well, it records your sleeping and breathing and oxygen levels of your blood. Oh, and that's another thing. I have to put a thing on my finger to read my heartbeat and my
Yeah,
oxygen
pulse and
levels.
stuff. Yeah.
So it saves the data in a box. So
I
whether you sleep, what's that?
So this isn't the like the sleep. What do they call it? The sleep apnea machine that people have. This isn't that. This is the
Oh no, the
preliminary of
CPAP. No, this
CPAP.
is
Yeah.
just to see if I need one of those.
Oh, okay, got it,
And
got it.
so
Okay,
this records. It's like a little black box for your
okay.
body,
So what
and it
does the
records.
okay? So what does the CPAP machine do then? That's the bit I
If
don't understand.
okay, if you wear a CPAP machine, it's like it fits over your mouth like a ventilator, and
Hmm.
it pumps high pressure air in to keep your air passages open while
What?
you sleep.
Just constantly?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So it
okay.
keeps a certain level of
Mm-hmm.
air pressure because so even if you stop, if your body stops breathing on its own,
Mm-hmm.
the air is still going in with a certain level of oxygen. I mean, it doesn't blow oxygen into you; it's just blowing the air that you would breathe in the room,
Right. Yeah.
and then and it stops you from having, because I wake up and I feel hungover, and it's from not getting enough oxygen and feeling groggy and having to take naps in the day.
Mm.
I mean, it doesn't help when it gets dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, like it is at the moment.
No, I
But
can't. I feel like every year it's the same. Like you think you would just get accustomed to it and be accepting of it, but I feel like every year it's like the most existential struggle to
it's
to like to come to terms with the fact that it's going to be 0 degrees next week, and it's so, I just, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
yeah.
Um, but with
But
that,
yeah, so now yeah, go
so
on.
so how long will it be? Like, assuming that your readings, for this equipment that you got today, assuming the readings say yes, you need a CPAP machine, how quickly will that happen?
You want to talk about readings?
Hmm.
Well, I don't know. Well, first of all, they said it can be 6 to 8 weeks before they tell me the results of the
But
readings.
how long do you have to have that equipment on at night?
Tonight, I have to wear it, have it on by 10 p.m., and I have to have it on to at least 7 a.m.
Hmm.
And I need to get 6 hours sleep, so they've got 6 hours of data
Hmm.
to use. So, and then I need to take it back to them on Monday morning at 8 a.m.
So it's just one night of data.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I need to take it back to them on Monday morning at 8 a.m. And then I will have to wait about 6 to 8 weeks before anyone tells me the data or the feedback. And
Mm,
then if I need a CPAP machine, it could take up to a year to get one.
great.
So
And in the meantime,
I'm,
you just
I'm
have to hope you don't stop breathing in your sleep.
well, I'm just slowly killing my brain cells from lack of oxygen at night.
Wow.
But yeah, I definitely am not snoring as much because I've lost a bit of weight over the last 6 months, and but I still know that it's happening. And
And you
even
and you don't drink anymore as well, and
no,
that was one of the triggers for it as well.
I don't
Or
drink, I don't smoke, I don't swear, I don't back my hair.
do you get
But
ill from one cigarette?
oh yeah, what is the line from that? I don't drink, I don't swear.
Swear, I don't something my
What's
hair.
it? I back my hair? Like back comb? Does
Back
she
home,
mean
maybe, yeah. I get ill
back my
from one
hair?
cigarette. This is for those who don't know what we're talking about. This is a song in Greece, the 1970s film with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. Um,
Olivia Newton-John was an Australian citizen
she
before she
definitely
died,
was Australian before she lived in
but
America.
she was born in the UK, right?
Yes. Yes.
So this my health problem of having this sleep apnea test that I have to do myself. I'm
Hmm.
not scared of it, but it's just a bit of a weird thing to like strap myself up with the devices, and I'm scared of not doing it correctly and it being a waste of time and money for people and for me.
Yeah.
But
And then having to
I,
wait more time.
oh yeah, but I've just got to get on with it. What
Excuse me.
what's I was just saying, well, I can hear now you've got a cough, but what's your latest medical mishaps or adventures or
Well,
journeys?
apart from choking live on air recording a podcast, hang on.
Is the bottom of your bottle dirty or is it just
It's
worn
just
out?
scratched. Like
Oh,
the paint has been scratched off.
we,
Um,
we might need to get you a nicer pod bottle.
yeah, I know. It's I just resent spending money on something like that because you go to a shop and those bottles can be like £18 and stuff. So I'm not going to spend 18 quid on a piece of metal.
You've got to get
Um,
into TK Maxx, or as our US listeners will know, as TJ
TJ
Maxx.
Maxx. Yeah, I know, but then you worry about like the plastics and the coating and stuff. You're like, is it discounted for a reason? Is it because it's not safe? Um, so what was the question? My most recent
Yeah, what's your
medical.
latest medical hijinks?
Well, when I got back from the States, I cut the back of my leg when I was in America, helping my brother load some stuff out of his truck. And it didn't seem like a bad cut. It was sort of on the back of my sort of just above my ankle on my lower calf.
Hmm.
And it didn't seem like a particularly bad cut. I didn't even feel it. I just looked down and saw some blood, a bit later on, and I cleaned it, and it actually was quite deep. But anyway, I didn't. think much of it. I flew home. I went back to work the next day. Then the following day, I had the open mic here in London. It was sort of a few days with very little time to rest and get over the jet lag. And I was starting to feel pretty unwell by the middle of the following week. And
Yeah.
I happened to have a doctor's appointment to look at something else on my back. That's another whole situation. Anyway, and I said to the doctor, I said, I'm sorry to be that person who comes in with one thing and then asks you to look at something else. I said, but could you just look at this thing on my leg? I'm a bit worried that it's infected because it's starting to sort of throb and hurt. Um, and she just looked at it and she said, that's badly infected. And so she put me on antibiotics. And I've had antibiotics before, like, and I always get a bit of an upset stomach with them, like a lot of people. But my reaction to these antibiotics was violent. It was just horrible. I couldn't go to work the next day. I'll spare you the graphic details, but it was just horrible.
Please.
And my stomach, I looked like I was about 6 months pregnant the following morning. Like I was so bloated. It was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, they worked, and the infection's gone completely, and it's fine. My leg is fine now, but yeah, and it was only really the first 24 hours where I had that reaction. Other than that, it settled down.
You talking about your leg throbbing made me remember a mistake I said on the podcast, and it's been bugging me for weeks.
Oh
We were
yeah.
talking about could we remember any musical guests or any particular musical guests on Saturday Night Live? And
Mm,
I talked about Janet Jackson singing "If," and now
yes.
you saying the word "throbbing" just made me remember that it was actually the song "Throb" that
Oh
she
really?
sang on
But she
Saturday
didn't
Night
do.
Live.
Sometimes they did more than one song though.
No, I just got it wrong. I misremembered. Classic. Tell me where I'm going wrong style.
I just read sort of a quick fire question and answer thing today with Gwen Stefani, who's got a new album out called Bouquet. Um,
Hmm.
and do you, before I tell you what she said in the interview, but do you remember? It's funny. Do you remember when No Doubt reformed and did Coachella earlier this year? It's in the summer, I think,
Hmm.
isn't it? Coachella. Do you remember
Yeah.
I sent you that link and it was Gwen Stefani arriving in her like hotel, apartment, suite, or whatever in Palm Desert, and she had done this little, I don't know, Insta, Facebook, TikTok video. Um, oh, we need to talk about social media in a second, but and it was this bunch of flowers from her husband, Blake Shelton, and she was going on, oh, look at this beautiful bouquet of flowers. And remember I sent it to you and I was like, why is she just going so like OTT about the fucking bouquet of flowers? Like, I don't understand. Anyway, it all makes sense now because her album is called Bouquet. And why was I telling you this? Because she was in an interview and she said that one of the most sort of fun experiences she'd had was being the musical guest on Saturday Night Live, and I don't know if I've ever seen that. Does that ring any bells for you?
No, but it was probably around her first solo album. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are and were big No Doubt fans, and we loved that first Gwen album. So I'm surprised neither of us. I mean, I may have seen it and have forgotten about it, so who knows? Um,
I think her music has just gone haywire. Like it's just not
well,
right.
but this new album, it's pretty good. I mean, there's the one song, the first single, Somebody Else's, and I think it's actually one of her best songs. Like, it's a really, really good pop song. It's a banger. It could have been on that last No Doubt album. It's, Push and Shove. It's a really, really great song, really well executed. And I was listening to it at work today, so I couldn't have it turned up very loud. But some of the other songs were interesting to me, and it's all about flowers and gardening,
Yeah,
which is
that's
of course of interest to me, but not to
but it's
not
a bit
to
of a
everyone.
weak theme for a pop album. But
Yeah,
what what I mean, I don't like how she does duets with Blake Shelton all the time now. It just seems
I think
every
there's
other
only
song.
one song on the album that's a
Well, that's
duet with
one
him.
too many for my liking.
Well, I
He
love
he
a harmony. Yeah, I love a harmony, Sue.
I mean, also people can have whatever beliefs they want and stuff, but her whole super Christian thing is a bit creepy to me.
Yeah,
Um, I don't
yeah,
like it. It doesn't appeal to me. And as
yeah.
somebody, who hangs around and has been informed by a lot of diverse audiences and like growing up in Orange County with and in the ska scene and growing up with a lot of non-white people and also being surrounded by a lot of queer people, it
Hmm.
just I don't like that hangs out at these mega churches and these gross
Yeah,
ugh, super
yeah.
Christian things.
One thing that really made me sort of a bit sad in the interview was that she said she can't listen to the Return of Saturn album anymore because she's got too much sort of trauma and PTSD from that period of her life, and that's really sad because that's such a good album. You know, it's well, most of them, all of the No Doubt albums were really good from Tragic Kingdom onwards, I think.
Is there anything, piece of art, music, movie, anything that you connect with a bad period of your life that you find it difficult to consume anymore? Like, is there anything that would trigger you or make you feel like sad and then you turn it off? I
Ooh, that's a good question. What about you? I don't know.
I don't know. There used to be things that I couldn't, but I think as I get older, maybe I suppose time heals things, or you have space between you and other stuff. But there are certain things that make me instantly remember sad situations, like instantly. Like I can even hear the first note of a song, the first bar of
Actually,
a
yeah,
song.
I just thought of something, but yeah, yeah. Um, I was going to let you finish.
Well, I'm not going
Oh,
anywhere.
but yeah, Blur. Like, I was a big fan of Blur, and I find their music really sort of quite triggering now because it was a very difficult time in my life, for a number of reasons. I mean, it was sort of my late teenage mid yeah late teenage years, mid to late teenage years, lots of tumultuous stuff going on, and I just find it really difficult to listen to it now. It just takes me back to a very unhappy period of my life. Not, it had moments of good stuff, but just overall a very conflicted period of my life. So yeah, Blur's music is like that.
Yeah, I had a very difficult time well, I suppose most of my life. I was going to say like around my teen years, my early 20s, my when I was an infant, when I was
Just up until 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
where everything's peachy keen now, but
Hmm.
yeah, like I yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I was talking to like a therapist sort of person about it, and they said I'd like to hear your.
Like a
I'd,
therapist sort of person. What's
Well, they're not a therapist. They're through the NHS. They keep telling me that I'm not a
Oh,
therapist.
okay. Okay, okay. I
But
thought
they
it was
kind
like
of
an
like
AI chatbot or something.
AI sex bot, and I was telling it about my trauma. But they said I would because I've been speaking to them for a while, and they said I'd really like to hear about things that you consider to be traumatic in your life. And I was just like, you really don't know what you're getting into. And
Hmm.
I had to sit with them for an hour and a half, and I still didn't get to all of it.
I like how I'm
And
laughing at that. That's funny.
but the look of shock on their face was just so like alarming as well. Like I wasn't trying to like outdo myself, but there was always like another thing, and then I was like, oh, and I know we're out of time, but then my someone was in prison in another country, and then this, and I was just like, I don't even know how to
Yeah.
like get it
Yeah.
all out. And but yeah, like everything that's happened in my life, what music was the soundtrack of it. And so even if I still enjoy music that I used to like when I was a kid, it can really put me back there emotionally or
Mm.
mentally,
Yeah.
memory wise, straight away.
Yeah.
Like I remember like certain Prince song Little Red Corvette, and how I used to go when I lived in a tent when I was a kid, and I used to go to the milk bar or the corner shop in Redcliffe, and I used to put Little Red Corvette on the jukebox. And so even though I love that song, and I saw Prince for years and years and years afterwards, and obviously my life changed a lot. If I hear that song, sometimes I think about being a poor child collecting bottles and cans so I'd have enough money to go and put Prince on the jukebox. Living in the dangerous situation, living in a tent next to the beach with weirdos around. And
Yeah.
I don't, where does this sort of stuff ever leave you, or does it never leave you?
Well, it never leaves you, but hopefully with time and maybe with some help, some therapy, you get to a place where you become more accepting of it, or yeah, more accepting, I suppose, which sounds so zen and and ridiculous. But I do think part of sort of moving on from things is an acceptance of it. That and the fact that you're still here to tell those tales is a positive, no matter how traumatic and awful the experiences we go through. The fact that we survive to tell the tale is, well, depending on your perspective, of course, that's a wonderful thing. And if we can get to a point where we acknowledge and accept all of those awful things, but value the insights and the understanding of our lives ourselves that they've given us, then maybe that's the only way to move forward. I don't know.
But sometimes it feels a little overwhelming to think that you're always going to feel negative emotions about a certain situation, that you're never going to be able to look back and go, have an internal dialogue where you go, oh, that doesn't matter to me. I know it can dissipate or it can lessen, but like that sort of trauma that changes the outcome of your life is, it's fundamental and it's very deep rooted.
But that's where, yeah, I was going to say that's where EMDR therapy can be really helpful, because it is it is like reprogramming, rewiring your brain. And I've had things happen in my past, traumatic events or periods of my life, and EMDR, it was for me, I know not everyone's experience is the same, but a lot of people do have a similar experience of EMDR therapy, where it's like being freed. It's like being freed from a cage that you've built around your own, soul or whatever. And it was incredibly liberating to undergo EMDR therapy and then to come out the other side and be able to remember. It's not like I've forgotten. It's not like hypnotherapy or anything. I still clearly remember all of these things, but it's like my brain has been rewired. And if people aren't familiar with EMDR therapy, have a quick look online. It's to do with eye movement, but it's proven. It's sort of scientifically proven to work at reprogramming your brain.
This person was talking to me about, I don't think it's a secret that I've had a complicated relationship with food. Anyone who knows my public persona, like my blog name or my Instagram name is Fat Gay Vegan, and that was born out of being overweight and obese. And I explained to this person about my sort of disordered eating and which I think manifests as compulsive eating disorder. And she's trying to talk to me about what I think caused it, right? Talking to me about what I think it's connected to. And it's such a complicated thing, right? Because I don't think there's one thing.
But why, like your eating specifically, why did it manifest in a compulsive eating habit? Is that what she was asking?
Yeah, like, do I think I know? Like, obviously, there's a real surface approach to it where you can say, oh, okay, when I'm stressed, I eat. Okay. But obviously for me, it's a lot deeper than that, because when I was bored, I would eat. When I was lonely, I'd eat. When I was happy, I would eat. When I was scared, I'd eat. When I was, I don't know, just any heightened emotion or lack of emotion, I would just eat. I had compulsive eating disorder. And so I can sort of do away with that. There isn't just one thing that triggers me to eat, right? There
Mm,
isn't just like, oh, well, keep yourself busy and you won't eat, because I would eat when I was super busy.
mm,
I'd you know, be busy doing work and I'd quickly eat because, I was also busy. And so
mm.
and then she also talked to me about, well, because as an influencer on Instagram and a blogger, and I have get invited to a lot of restaurants. And she said, oh, well, what if you didn't do that anymore? Would that take away, like, I don't know, 20% of the food you would eat? And I said, no, because if I'm not in a restaurant, I would just go and eat somewhere else. Like, it's not, I'm
Eating
only,
predated the
yeah,
Instagram and the
yeah,
vlog. Yeah.
yeah. And then I would go to the restaurant, and then I'd eat on the way back from the restaurant something else. And so I
You'd
was doing away with all these.
you'd eat just as much, but you'd have less money.
Yeah, exactly. And so then she was like, okay, well, could you go deeper and think, is there anything in your past that you think that desire to eat might have grown from? Like,
Hmm.
is it a response to a certain set of traumas or experiences? And I was like, mate, like, I can't even begin to imagine which one it might be.
Yeah.
It could be when I was lived in a tent when I was a child, and I used to have to go to, like, my mother would go to work at like 6 a.m. and leave me in the tent on my own, and I was, I don't know, 7 years old, and I would have to go to the bakery across the street and have a sugared donut and a can of lemonade for breakfast. Like, it could be part of that. It could be that I felt insecure because I didn't have any adults that looked after me, and I just looked for instant gratification all my life. And one of the things I turned to was food. I mean, I also did it with inappropriate sex or alcohol. And so, yeah, like, maybe that is one of the reasons. And
Mm.
then I thought, okay, well, maybe it's also because I have been so poor at different times in my life. Maybe it's an internalized survival mechanism where I think I've just got to eat as much as I can. Who knows, right?
But
So,
yeah, no, there's all the classics as well. Like, being in abusive situations. It So many survivors of abuse do have issues with food, and you know whether or not there's any truth to it. One of the old sort of cliches is that by making yourself physically bigger, you feel more in control, or you feel better protected from the outside world. So I mean, it's it's almost futile, I think, to try and bring it back or try and trace it back to one thing, because it's probably not one thing.
but I think what she's trying to get at is, if I can see or understand a correlation, that I
Mm,
might be able to go back and rethink, similar to what you're talking about with the other type of therapy, right?
mm,
Like, go back and change the way that I respond to something that was traumatized me enough to trigger, a trauma response, which was overeating. But I just said to her, at this point in my life, like being 50 years old, there are so many things that it could be attributed to. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
yeah.
Like, it could be getting beaten as a child. It could be like, sorry, trigger warning. Sorry, we're going to have to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this episode. But, it could be physical assault that I lived through. It could be sexual assault that I lived through. It could be malnutrition from being poor. Like, it could
Mm.
be financial instability that I've had a lot of my life. It could be uh, so many different things, like abandonment issues. Like, you name it, right? Like, there's so much that I've lived through and that I've survived that I wouldn't know where to start to pinpoint what to work on. And that's
Mm.
similar thing to the therapy that you're talking about. What is it called again? The
EMDR.
EMDR. Like, do they ask you to go back to a specific traumatic event and try and see? I wouldn't know which one to pick. Like, I wouldn't know if it was the time that, I mean, one of many of the times my father beat me. I mean, or can you just put all that together and go, oh yeah, my father used to beat me across this number of years?
Well, I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
that's something you have to sort of establish with your therapist. And a good EMDR therapist will spend quite a few sessions at the beginning of the therapy period, just helping you to go through and sort of make a list, of what are the main things. And it can be isolated incidents, or it can be periods of your life, or it can be a mix of the two, So that, yeah, like EMDR therapy might take a long time. It might take a couple of years for you to go through all of the things you want to go through. Um, but yeah, I really do recommend it.
But it's exhausting, right? Like, like I said, I'm 50. To think that I'm going to have to do this work until the day I die, like, there's no end game, right? It's just over one day. It's like you have to, it might feel like it's lessened. It might feel like you have a better handle on it,
Mm.
but it doesn't, like surviving trauma doesn't go away. You just survive it in a different way.
No,
That's
but
how it feels like
no,
to
but
me.
the PTSD can go away with EMDR. It's not like like I said, it doesn't disappear. You do remember all the things, but you feel differently about them, and that's what trauma experts like oh, Gabor Mate, or what's his name, Peter Levine. They all say trauma isn't really the incident that happens. It's the way that you store it in your brain, or it's the neurological pathways that build up around it. It's the narrative that you tell yourself around it that grows over time. That is what the real trauma is. And so it is really like a reset button, or a factory reset button for your brain. It's a very powerful thing. And I was really skeptical at first. One of our mutual friends had done it, and she told me about it, and I was just thought, this is bonkers. Like, moving your eyes, or watching two dots move across the screen, or whether you're doing it with someone's finger, however you're doing it, it seems so implausible to me that that would do anything to alleviate the symptoms of complex, trauma from years, decades ago. And yet, within a couple of sessions of starting the actual therapy itself, I could feel immediately the benefits. And so
But what does it actually do?
it allows you to, like I said, like a factory reset. It allows you to go back to that traumatic event or that traumatic period, and sort of erase the sediment that has built up around it in your mind. And it allows you to, I mean, there's a bit of sort of therapy. I mean, I've only done it with one therapist, so I would not ever say I'm an expert at this, having only done it with one therapist, one very good therapist. I was very fortunate to have a good therapist to do it with. And of course, there's some therapy around the incident. So what, I'll give you one example. Was a time when I was very, very young, in hospital following a horrible car accident. And the, the sort of the memory that I found most traumatic was when I'd first been taken into the hospital, and I was being held down by several, doctors and nurses, and being like put under. I don't know, they put like gas or something, to sort of put me under, and I found that very traumatic. And of course, going back and because often with these traumatic events, they're so awful, they're such awful experiences, we just lock them away. We just build a very, very strong cage around them, and then we lock them away, and we're very aware because we feel the weight of that on our backs every day of our
Mm.
lives. But it's there, and it just gives you a chance to go back and think, well, okay, and this won't work with every scenario. This was just in a medical situation. Those doctors, those nurses were trying to help me. And although it was a very traumatic experience for me, and I was terrified of what they were doing because I was young and I didn't understand, I'd just been in a car accident, it, did allow me to sort of step outside of myself and look at it from an objective position, I suppose, and realize that although that's how I'd remembered the traumatic event, that wasn't really the traumatic event, you know. The traumatic event would have been the car crash itself, but it was just how that in my memory had stored, had catalogued, if you like, that particular incident as the standout event. It just, I don't really, I don't, you know, pretend to be an expert, and I don't want to be a spokesperson for it in the sense that I don't know enough about it. I'm not qualified to talk about the science behind it. But as somebody who's
That
gone through it,
not knowing enough science has never stopped a podcaster.
that's true. God, yeah. Especially on this podcast. And yeah, I think although I'm not an expert, I'm a massive advocate for it, and I've told lots and lots of people about it, and I'll continue to extol the benefits
I am
until they do more research in the future, and they're like, oh, we found one of the side effects is about 4 years after you stop the therapy, you have terrible memory loss.
It'll go down at the EDMR, is it? EDMR
E-
will be found out to be
EMDR.
that EMDR will go down the same time as vaping. I I am so gay that while you were talking about being held down in the emergency
Hospital.
room hospital, I was thinking about the beginning of the Marry the Night video by Lady Gaga, where she's in that institution being wheeled in a peppermint green beret and
That was me.
bleach.
Well, with less outrageous fashion, but that was me being held down. And there was something I wanted to talk about in this episode, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I don't know if maybe we have to save it for next week's episode. But both of us were appalled when was it last week's episode? I think when we uploaded the episode to YouTube, and YouTube has this thing now where they automatically will tag certain people or key
Mm.
topics in an episode, and if you're the publisher, you cannot opt out of that. You cannot undo it. And so I'm not even going to mention his name in this podcast. I don't want him to come up. In fact, I don't think we should ever mention his name again. And from now on, the president-elect of the United States, I'm just going to call Dump.
Even that's too much.
Well, I'm just going to call him Dump because he is a piece of shit. So we mentioned his name, and so it was tagged, and Sean and I were just absolutely appalled that it was tagged in the sort of the show notes of the episode with him as a topic and a fucking picture of him as well. And we were just, yeah, we were so upset that we can never
Uh,
mention his name on this podcast ever again. In fact, I think we'll
talking
have
about
to.
talking about traumatic incidents of my life. That whole election and what's going on and the people he's picking for his cabinet is just so
Well,
bizarre.
I know, I
Anyway,
know.
so can we finish on something a bit more positive then? I'm
Okay,
wearing my lose records shirt.
is that the
You know
one
the record,
in Encinitas?
yeah, in California, north of
Mm,
San Diego. So
yeah.
this is a shirt I bought in 2019, and I love it. It's a really great record store. If you're ever in the area and you want to go and support an amazing record store,
It's just probably half an hour north of San Diego, about an hour
and if you're
and
in San
around.
Diego and you don't drive, you can even just take the train. I mean, when um, Hill and I went there with Michelle Gartland,
Mm,
she came and stayed in San Diego with us. We had like a little mini holiday all together, and we just took the local train, and it's walking distance from the train station. It's really
mm.
fun because the train goes along, that Southern California train track that goes along like very close
Is
to the
that
coastline.
the Sundowner? Is that what it's called? That
Sunliner,
Sunliner,
surf
Sundowner,
surfliner,
Surfliner.
surfliner,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
surfdowner.
It's a beautiful part of the world.
And I really like it there. And there are some vegan places to eat in Encinitas. I
Oh my
love it. But
God,
the record store,
plant powered. You
oh
know that
yeah,
chain?
no, that's
Oh my
great.
God, it's so good, so good. Damn.
But do you have a favorite record store?
I mean, that's great. I was there. I was at Lose Records well, it was about a year, just over a year ago now, last October. I was there and I bought a vinyl copy of Fleetwood Mac's Fleetwood Mac album for Lauren because she is a mutual friend of ours who sort of lives between LA and London, and she had just gotten a record player at her place in LA, and so she was starting a vinyl collection, and I got that Fleetwood Mac album because it's probably one of my favorites. Anyway, Lou's Records is a great place. I used to love, when I was a teenager, I used to love going to the HMV on Oxford Street, sadly no longer with us.
Well, it's
Uh,
there again now.
oh, it is?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. But
It's open
I don't
again.
have a record player now, so what about you?
Yeah, well,
what are your
Lou's. There's I can't remember the name of it, but there's a record store in Leeds, which is incredible. Uh, sorry, not
where
Leeds, not Leeds, in Sheffield.
okay.
In Sheffield, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's really wonderful. And also in what's that place where I go to, that 80% vegan bakery um,
What
down in South London near Croydon.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of the.
Coughlin's Bakery.
Yeah, but I can't remember. They've got a few, but there's this one town, or there's one suburb in particular. It's where like David Bowie was when he was very young. He used to
Oh yeah.
play. What's the name of the suburb? I can't remember. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
can't
there's a.
remember.
Oh my God, I can't remember the name of the suburb, the name of the record store. How, what's the point? What's the point of even bringing up anything on
Why
this
don't you
podcast?
hit your mic one more time for us?
Well,
Um,
it makes a change from your bottle being unscrewed
Look,
and the noise that makes.
I've learned to not screw or unscrew my bottle. What
Why don't you
is?
just leave the lid off the bottle when you're
Because
doing
I'm
the podcast?
scared. You know how clumsy I am. I'm scared I'll spill water over my laptop. Or what's the? Is it Skinny's in Brisbane? Does that still exist? Skinny's record store?
I don't think so. Maybe it does. When I was there last year, I went Skinnies or Rocking Horse. There was Skinnies and there was Rocking Horse, and I
Skinny's
can't
is the
remember
one
which.
in the city in the basement, right? Where
Yeah,
we
where we
saw
saw
Tegan
Tegan and Sarah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had a dream about Tegan and Sarah last
I
night.
really want to
That
watch that catfish documentary.
I saw in my dream. I saw Tegan and Sarah outside the gates of a big festival in the US. It was something like Lollapalooza or something, and I was trying to get in, but I didn't have a ticket. And one of them was with like their sort of PR guy, and I was like, "Oh, I love you," and I was telling stories about seeing them in Skinnies in Brisbane and how I saw them at that pub in Sydney when they first toured Australia to about 60 people, and they were like, yeah, great. And I said, could you like get me a ticket to get in? They were like £300, and I can't get in. I really want to see you guys play. And the PR person said, I'll give you a free ticket if you can tell me if this is Tegan or Sarah. Because there's only one of them there. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to tell
Oh,
you
that's so
apart. I'm
funny.
really sorry. And she
Nice.
was laughing, goes, I'll just give him a ticket. And this guy goes, nope, he's not a real fan. He doesn't know how to tell you apart.
We would have had a
And
50-50 chance.
I know. And
Mm,
it was also, I think it was triggered by, I went to this event called Plant Based World Expo, and I
mm,
met those celebrity vegan chef brothers called the Happy Pair. They're like identical twin brothers from Ireland.
okay.
And I met them and I was talking to them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try and guess which one I'm talking to. And he said, look, if you email me at this email address, and he said his name, and I was just like, I would have guessed you were the other guy. Like, how do you tell identical twins apart?
Oh, I know. Do you remember when I first worked at QUT, Queensland University of Technology, in that office? And I can't remember her name now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I worked with a woman, and I was on reception one afternoon, and she walked in to the building past reception, said hello, and I turned to my I turned to my screen, and then I like not even a minute later, like 30 seconds later, I looked up and she walked into the building again wearing a completely different set of clothes. And I was like, and she could tell. And she said, oh, I think Julie, I think her name was, said, oh, did Julie not mention she's got an identical twin? And I was like, no, she didn't. Yeah, for that few seconds, I was just like, what the actual fuck is going on? Um,
What about how weird would it be if you were identical twins, but you were like separated at birth and then you ran into each other like years later.
Well, we haven't got time to get into doppelgangers, have we? Have we talked about doppelgangers on the podcast? I don't
I
think we
don't think
have.
so. Maybe that can be another thing. Who do you get to? Oh yeah, somebody told you once you look like Boy
Oh
George.
yeah, but that was one time. But that, and I don't think I really do. So I think, whereas you've got Chris Moyles quite a lot.
Hmm.
Um, we'll have to make that an episode in the future, I
We'll do a
think.
Chris Moyles themed episode.
Yeah. Um,
Moyles.
we should wrap up. As I said at the top of the episode, don't forget to subscribe on Spotify and on YouTube, and leave us comments. Let us know who your doppelgangers are, perhaps. Let us know what films and TV shows you cry at. And don't mention Mr. Dump, whatever you do. And Sean, where can people find you if they want to find more about your
I want
eating
to
endeavors?
find out about my controlled compulsive eating disorder. You can follow me on Instagram and see what I eat now that I've somewhat got under control with medical intervention. Follow me on Instagram. Also, this is coming out, I think, before the end of our crowdfunder campaign for Made in Hackney, the food security charity where I work. There might be a few days remaining of the crowdfunder campaign. We're trying to raise £30,000. So click the link in the description of this video or go searching for Made in Hackney crowdfunder and give us some money. And we only have about £7,000 left to raise. So we should be able to make it if generous people help us out.
And it's still match funded, is it? If anything that people donate will be doubled?
Yeah, any individual donation of £250 or less will be doubled. So give us a fiver, it turns into £10. Give us £100, it turns into 200. I had to think what double 100 then is. But thank you to you, Josh, for donating recently.
You're welcome.
You gave us.
Very welcome.
I won't say how much. People can go and see it's public record. But
don't shame me.
Thank you.
It's
thank you for your generous.
It's a great charity. So yeah, do give whatever you can, and if you want to find out more, just go to Sean's socials, Fat Gay Vegan. If you want to find out anything about me, what I've been eating, I don't really post food much these days, but it's mostly music related or just interesting scenery that I've seen. But links to all my music is there. It's Josh and the Jump Starts on Instagram, not on Twitter anymore, but we'll have to talk about that in a future episode as well.
And if you want to come along to any of the events that I do, I always list them in my bio as well. But this comes out in November still. I'm doing a fundraising dinner at Downs, a vegan Scandinavian cafe, and it'll be wonderful to meet some people in real life. So come along and support the charity and eat.
I was going to say on the Sunday the 24th of November at the Cock Tavern in Kennington, South London, from 5:30 onwards, we'll be hosting the queer open mic. So come along and you can see some wonderful, talented queers. You can see me play. I don't know what I'm going to play yet, but I'll play something. And otherwise we will be back in your feeds this time next week. Until then, thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye. See you at the hospital. Bye.